of 2009. Chapter 1. On hot summer evenings, Quinault, Arkansas appears on the horizon like a mirage, a dirty thumbprint on the blue slate sky, as if God tried to rub it out as an afterthought. This is when it appears at all. Being so far off Highway 7, no one finds it without seeking it. Down a dog-trot country road, called Dog Trot Road, around the bend where Haskins' farm used to be, over one stomach-dropping rise, and down that flat delta path to where the hazy indistinctness becomes hazy broken-down reality. The sign which used to sit on Dog Trot Road announced a population of 312, but after Sue Peller Congleton had triplets and Laney Welks killed his whole family, the babysitter, and the preacher's nephew from Jonesboro, it became high math to keep the figures current, and the project was abandoned and the government monies allocated elsewhere. Eventually the signpost succumbed to weather and beer bottles and fell into a ditch, where it lies to this day, a refuge for dragonflies and a family of moccasins. The mayor-sheriff of Quinault's Ham Acres, who had held the dual post for nigh on 3 decades, on account of no one else wanted the position, though it held few responsibilities, and no one quite knew how to run an election, or rightly cared for that matter. Ham acquired the post right after he got back from flunking out of Arkansas State, but not before he had taken a semester of political science, which doomed him to administer over the town of Quinault for the rest of his born days. Now, Ham was not a lazy man by nature. He sort of came to it by necessity. Acquiring a government post, even in a town where there was no need of government, created in Ham a desire to fulfill duties of which he had previously been but dimly aware. These duties amounted to answering the phone at the City Hall office, a back room behind Cuney's dry goods, and marshalling the annual Christmas parade, which they hadn't held since Ham's second year in office, due to the one float the town had assembled being stolen New Year's Eve night. The float turned up over in Paul Messmacher's cotton field, and no one knows how, and no one has gone over to fetch it. What with the rain and all, it doesn't resemble a festive conveyance so much anymore. Ham had hired Cale Badlock to be his deputy. Cale and Ham had gone to high school together, had both lettered in football. Since Quinault couldn't afford a full-time deputy, Cale also worked at the Shandy Motel as a desk clerk. Ham's wife, Melissa Ann, on the other hand, had all the energy God gave a squirrel, and put it to use forming committee after committee, to little or no avail, most of her meetings consisting of herself and Lucas Grinder, the deaf yard man, who attends everything just to get in out of the heat or the cold. And Melissa Ann rather resembled a squirrel, her features gathering in the middle of her pointed face, her hair a coarse brown gray, and her arms unnaturally small appendages. Melissa Ann's best physical feature, the feature which makes her the most desirable woman in Quinault, was an excessively attractive hind quarters. Salesmen traveling the Jonesboro-Little Rock route had been known to pull off onto Dog Trot Road in a sexual frenzy just to sit in their worn-out American cars and watch for Melissa Ann to walk down the street. The lucky ones who caught a glimpse, say on a day Melissa Ann wore blue jeans, or some one of those rayon things which require the absence of panties, would drift back in their mechanical seats and cast Onan's seed into open Wendy's sacks or handkerchiefs. Melissa Ann looked that good from behind. Tom Moore lived on County Road 3, the road everybody called Tom Moore Road, because his was the only house on the road, except for some blacks, the Grinders and the Settles in shacks on the north end, and because his family had been there for generations. Tom Moore received his mail addressed thus: Tom Moore, Quinault, Arkansas. And this was a constant source of pride in him. Wilbur Wright, the 86-year-old postman, always greeted Tom with a hoarse howdy, and Tom normally got up from whatever he was doing and personally took the mail from Wilbur's hand. Notice from the government, Wilbur might say, handing Tom an official-looking envelope with a Little Rock postmark. Only the government puts down a street address for you, Tom, Wilbur added, pointing out the extraneous line on the computer-generated label, County Road 3. This normally upset Tom. He had lobbied for years, sending letter after letter to Little Rock, and then when that didn't appear to work, to Washington, attempting to clarify that mail addressed to him need only his name and town. Wilbur each time put a comforting hand on Tom's shoulder to assuage the irritation of such a missive. Government waste, Tom declared through gritted teeth. I've tried to tell him. Tom Moore was one of Quinault's most famous citizens, rivaled only by Rita Mae Ridley, who went to Memphis in 1970 and became a member of the Cotton Carnival Queen's Court, though no one knows how, and whose picture hangs in the post office above the bulletin board, which asks ordinary citizens to be on the lookout for a whole host of child molesters and armed crackpots. And easily its most sophisticated, Tom wrote a restaurant review column that ran in the Arkansas Tribune and occasionally made its way into the illustrious pages of Southern Living magazine. Tom wrote this column from his home, never actually visited restaurants, using his ripe imagination and the menus brought to him by traveling salesmen or found online. No restaurateur knew what Tom looked like, and hence no one could dispute whether he visited their establishment or not. He signed his column, The Remote Restaurateur. The one restaurant bar in Quinault was Hermes, sometimes misspelled as Hermes, run by Hermes Jones, local wise man and prognosticator. Hermes was more than just a place to eat, though. It was a gathering place for the town's word-of-mouth network, the hottest spot in town, the heart of Quinault. Hermes knew all, and was as likely to tell it as he was likely to sneak a shot of rot gut into the teenagers' coats just for the asking. Sturgis County was a dry county, but if there were spirits to be had, everyone knew to go to Hermes. It was a right popular place. Hermes' only competition in town, well out on the highway really, was a strip joint called Tracy's Prow. There one could find co-eds from Arkansas State and other institutions of higher learning disrobing to the throb and beat of 80s pop. They had a stripper there named Coco Everingham, whose naked back was so beautiful, it was said, that then Governor Bill Clinton once fainted upon seeing it unveiled. Sheriff Akers turned a blind eye to its regular business of light prostitution. It made him feel more big city.